none of them feel right. I've got tools for days, a rainbow chart parade, but every call's just echo and delay. CRM's a mess, I can't recall the names. Campaigns are hot, but no one's in the game.
Well, I hope you enjoyed our homage to yacht rock this week. And if you'd like to listen to the whole weekly wisdom music of the week, you can get on my LinkedIn profile and listen to that. So wanted to thank you for joining me this morning, or joining me as you're watching the recording, and want to talk about what we're covering this month, which is we are tackling the biggest mistake that founders make when trying to grow, which is skipping the foundations. And this week, we're specifically focusing on the most common foundation that gets skipped, understanding the difference between activity and strategy, between motion and traction. Welcome, everybody. I'm Dan Griffith from Greater Gain Group. And again, today we're talking about something that might make some of you uncomfortable, the difference between looking busy and being profitable. The story I'm about to share is about a founder who built what looked like the perfect marketing machine and nearly went out of business because of it. This ties directly into our monthly focus because this founder made the classic mistake. He skipped the foundations and jumped straight to execution. Most founders want to scale first and figure out strategy later. That's the easy way to do it. But as you'll see from today's story, that approach can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. But before we dive in, let me ask you, how many of you are tracking metrics that make you feel productive but aren't necessarily moving deals forward? Drop a comment if that hits close to home. I see this with about 70% of the founders who reach out to us at Greater Gain Group. They've built impressive activity machines on shaky foundations. So let's start the story that perfectly illustrates why you can't skip the foundations. I had a founder reach out to me last year. We'll call him Marcus. Not his real name. The names are changed to protect the innocent. His company had been trying to break into the U.S. market for 9 months. He hadn't closed a single deal. When we got on our first Zoom call, what was supposed to be a 1-hour meeting turned into 3.5 hours. Marcus was proud to show me his marketing machine. He walked me through at least 10 different tools: LinkedIn Sales Navigator, Grammarly, Demandbase, Apollo, MailChimp, SharePoint, Dynamic CRM, you name it. 4 full-time marketing and sales team members. A Microsoft project dashboard that looked like someone had spilled a rainbow-colored bowl of spaghetti across the screen. They were generating over 400 marketing qualified leads every single month and keeping 2 BDRs very busy, and they were doing it actually full-time. But the activity levels were impressive. Email campaigns going out daily, social media posts scheduled weeks in advance, webinars, white papers, case studies. They actually had it all. But here's the kicker. Not one of those 400 monthly leads had turned into revenue. 0 deals, 0 pipeline momentum, 0 traction. Unfortunately, Marcus had skipped the foundations. He didn't know exactly who he was trying to reach, what message would resonate with them, or how to measure whether his efforts were actually working. Instead, he jumped straight to tactics and tools, building an impressive structure, but building it on quicksand. This is the classic foundational mistake, assuming that more activity equals better results. But when your foundations are weak, more activity just amplifies your problem. So, what foundations did Marcus skip? This is where our monthly theme becomes critical. As you know, this month we're tackling the biggest mistakes founders try to make, which is skipping the foundations. And the most common foundation that gets skipped is understanding the difference between activity and strategy. Activity is motion. Strategy is direction with purpose. Activity says, we sent 10,000 emails this week. Strategy asked, did those emails create sales qualified opportunities within our clearly defined ideal customer profile? Activity says, our blog just got 50,000 views. Strategy says, did those readers become buyers who fit our revenue model and we can replicate? Activity says, we generated 400 MQLs. Strategy asks, How many of those MQLs converted to revenue? And is this process sustainable? Most founders I work with are stuck in an activity mode because it does feel like progress. You're busy. You close the day having checked off a lot of things on your list. You're executing. Your team's working hard, but activity without strategic direction is just expensive motion. It's like trying to run on a treadmill and win a race. Lots of activity, no forward motion. Marcus had built the most sophisticated activity machine I had ever seen, but he skipped the strategic foundations. He didn't have clarity on his ICP, his messaging didn't resonate with buyers, and he couldn't measure what actually moved his deals forward. This is why foundations matter. If you don't have strategic clarity on who you're serving, how you help them, and how you'll measure success, all that activity just amplifies the confusion. So how do you know if you've skipped the foundations? I'm glad you asked. I'll use 4 diagnostic questions. When I diagnose a stalled revenue engine, especially for founders at inflection points like Marcus, I start with these 4 foundational questions. These questions reveal whether you've built your growth efforts on solid foundation or on quicksand. Foundation number 1, can you define your ICP in one sentence? Not mid-market healthcare companies. That's not an ICP. That's a category. I mean something like CFOs at 500-bed hospitals who are frustrated with manual revenue cycle processes and have budget authority for 6-figure software purchases. Marcus failed this immediately. When I asked him to define his ICP, he said, healthcare companies that need compliance software. This is not a foundation. That's a guess. You can't build effective messaging, campaigns, and sales process on a guess. Foundation number 2, does your messaging answer what's in it for me? This is critically important, especially for companies entering the US market, and it's often something that they miss. If your prospect can't immediately see how you solve their specific pain, they won't engage, period. Most founders talk about features and benefits. Buyers care about outcomes that solve their exact problem. Marcus's website had beautiful product descriptions. He had nice feature lists and technical specifications that you could download, but nowhere did it clearly state what problem it solved and for whom. His messaging foundation was weak. It was about his product, not about his buyer's pain. Foundation number 3, are you reachable by your ICP? This is where something like LinkedIn Sales Navigator becomes crucial, which we'll talk about in our tech spotlight later this week. Can your actual decision makers find you? Are you showing up in their world with messaging that resonates? Marcus had great SEO for generic terms, but his ideal buyers couldn't find them when they searched for solutions for their specific problems. His distribution foundation was flawed. He was optimizing for search volume, not search intent from his ICP. And foundation number 4, can you measure what moves deals forward? Pipeline velocity, conversion rates at each stage, time to close, deal size trends. These are the foundational metrics that matter. Everything else is vanity. Marcus was measuring email opens, website traffic, social media engagement, and MQL volume. But he couldn't tell me his conversion rate from MQL to opportunity, his average deal size, or his sales cycle length. His measurement foundation was broken. He was measuring inputs, not outcomes. Marcus had skipped all 4 foundations, and that's exactly why 400 MQLs turned into 0 revenue. And here's the quote that made him realize the cost of skipping foundations. There's nothing so useless as doing efficiently what should not be done at all. I shared this quote with Marcus during that first call, and it stopped him in his tracks. He realized that he built the world's most efficient marketing engine for doing the wrong things, because he'd skipped the foundational work of figuring out what the right things were. This quote captures the essence of our monthly theme perfectly. This month, we're tackling the biggest mistakes founders make when trying to grow, skipping the foundations. Marcus had skipped the foundation of strategic clarity, so all his efficient activity was essentially useless. You can have a lot of motion, emails flying, meetings happening, reports being generated, but if it's not built on solid foundations of ICP clarity, message market fit, and outcome measurement, it's just sophisticated procrastination. So how do you fix the foundations that have been skipped? Here's the framework we used. Step 1, ICP clarity. We threw out the 400 MQLs and focused on defining exactly who we were trying to reach. Not healthcare companies, but CFOs at 200 to 500 bed hospitals in the Southeast who are facing Joint Commission compliance deadlines and have been burned by previous software implementations. We got so specific that we could find those exact people on LinkedIn in under 5 minutes. We researched their challenges, their language, and their priorities. We understood their world better than they did. This is foundational work. It's not easy. It takes a little bit, but you cannot build effective campaigns, messaging, or processes until you have this foundation in place. Foundation 2, message market fit. Instead of generic value propositions about streamlined compliance workflows, we crafted messaging that spoke directly to the CFO's specific pain. Stop losing sleep over JCO deadlines, and then talking about how our clients reduced their compliance prep time from 6 months to 6 weeks while cutting consultant fees by 70%. Super specific, super addressed to the pain that these CFOs were feeling. We tested this message then with real prospects before we scaled it. We got on calls with CFOs and asked, if you saw this on LinkedIn, would it make you want to learn more? Most said yes. That's a solid messaging foundation. You cannot build effective activity around messaging that does not resonate. Foundations first, activity second. Foundation number 3, channel and measurement clarity. Instead of 10 different tools and tactics, we mastered one: LinkedIn direct outreach with personalized value-based messaging, not spam. We proved it could generate qualified opportunities consistently before we added any other channels. We built measurement foundations: response rates, meeting booked rates, opportunity creation rates, and conversion to closed deals. We optimized this until we had a predictable system. The key principle throughout this recovery: build the foundations first. Master one thing before going to 10 things. Prove your system works on solid foundations before scaling and doubling down on it. And here's what happened when we stopped skipping foundations. 6 months after we stopped skipping foundations and built them properly, 3 closed deals worth $180,000 in total contract value. More importantly, $750,000 in wasted marketing spend eliminated. But here's the most important result. Marcus now had a predictable, scalable process built on solid foundations. He wasn't dependent on his personal network anymore. His team could execute the process without him being involved in every deal. He could clearly articulate his ICP. His value proposition landed with prospects, and his team knew exactly what good looked like at each stage of the process. That's what happens when you build proper foundations before you scale. That's why this month we're talking about the biggest mistake founders make when trying to grow: skipping the foundations. The system worked because we built it on strategic foundations, not just impressive activity. This connects directly to what we'll be covering next week, which is seriously don't launch blind in 2026. We'll dive into how we get your ICP, messaging, and go-to-market playbook foundations right before the year even starts. This builds perfectly on today's lessons about skipping foundations. Once you understand why foundations matter, you need to apply that thinking to your 2026 planning. Next week, I'll show you how to avoid launching campaigns, hiring people, or scaling spend without the foundational clarity that Marcus was missing. If today's session resonated with you and you want to make sure your 2026 planning is built on solid foundations, make sure you come and join us next week and that you're subscribed to catch that session. But right now, let's talk about immediate next steps for building your foundations. If you're wondering whether you skipped the foundations like Marcus did, I've created a growth readiness audit checklist. It walks you through the same 4 foundational questions we used with Marcus, plus a framework for building solid foundations before you scale. This isn't about selling you anything. It's about giving you the same diagnostic tools I use with clients. You can work through this on your own and get immediate clarity on which foundations you might have skipped. To get the checklist, comment audit below on whatever platform you're joining us in, or send me a direct message and I'll get to it immediately. You can also book a 45-minute growth readiness audit call where we'll diagnose your specific foundational gaps together. This is the diagnostic session, not a sales call. You'll walk away with clarity on which foundations you need to build and a specific plan to build them. The key takeaway from today, this month we're tackling the biggest mistake founders make when trying to grow, skipping the foundations. Don't make Marcus's 750,000 mistake. Your foundations are important. Build them first. Wanted to thank you for joining us today. Hope this was helpful to you. As always, leave comments and we'll jump in and talk with you. And look forward to seeing you next week or online. Thanks for joining.
With a focus base, motion with traction.